It's go time.
Hey guys, how's it going? Kripp here. Today I give you guys my thoughts on Diablo 4 Season 2. Honestly, I didn't think I would be making this video before Season 2 had come out. They did have some pretty ambitious changes. We had the patch notes like almost a week before the season launched, and it certainly looked like things could take a turn for the better, but you know, it's really hard to really believe it, at least from my side, until I got my hands on the game. And now that I've played about a week straight of Diablo 4, I would say that I am really surprised on how well things have turned out for the game. And I also have seen a lot of my fellow content creators make videos about their opinions, about their gameplay experience, and I actually don't agree with a lot of them, so I thought I would voice my opinion just so you guys can at least have a different one.
What
so
the
Season
fuck?
of Blood came out.
Wait, what the fuck? He's talking about me and then he says he disagrees with me, bro? What the fuck, dude? Is he subtweeting me in a video right now, bro? For real? Is he firing shots at my ass?
About a week ago, and Season of Blood introduced...
No, I'm interested to hear what he's got to say, though. All right. I'm interested. Stop talking, chat. I'm interested to hear what he's got to say. Let's get this. Set the lights to 100% and a very serious color. A very serious color, yeah. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. This is going to be... I'm interested to see what the fuck this is.
This mechanic where there are these zone takeovers by the vampires, and you go and beat them up and get some kind of powers and loot and EXP. And it sounds like a pretty simple mechanic, but I actually think the mechanic for Season 2 is nearly perfect. And I'll go in.
Do you know what? Before I start vomiting everywhere, I'm actually going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and see what he has to say. Let's see what kind of logic he's got cooking here. Let's see what kind of logic.
To why. So a lot of my opinions come from my time playing Path of Exile. In Path of Exile, new league comes out, league or a season as you may, or expansion sometimes they call them. It's kind of a big change to the game, new character ladder in a way, and I basically play for like a week, sometimes 2 weeks, a bit off stream. Sometimes it keeps my attention for a month. Path of Exile is a pretty intricate game. Now, Diablo this time around actually delivered on what I really enjoy from new PoE leagues, and again, I was pretty surprised by this because I didn't expect to have such a good time. So what changed? How was my journey? So through the changes, there's so many changes, and I'll go over all the different ones.
I want to know. I really want to know. Like, dude, this league mechanic had the depth of a fucking puddle. Like what could he possibly be liking about this fucking league mechanic so much? Because the fact that I just know that you would go and kill monsters and you would get some stupid reputation, which give you pointless rewards, which you didn't care about, and then you would get blood, which would just unlock some powers, which, you know, the powers were okay, but nothing to write home about. Nothing to really, truly inspire some insane new build or anything crazy. It was just like, okay, these are kind of nice. How could that, something with such a little depth, possibly captivate you or keep your attention?
I ended up rolling with a Shadow Golemancer. It was difficult to really understand what they had really changed from the patch notes. It was really hard to get a grasp for the sum of the patch notes because it's like, hey, we're going to redo the overpower mechanic, but it actually took people months when the game came out to figure out how overpower works. So even...
Spoiler alert, it was fucking trash before. And now do you know what the new overpower mechanic is? It's just Kripp with a different name.
Though it's like, you know, maybe it will be good, it was really hard to really say just by looking at the patch notes. So I went with a pretty safe pick, but it was a class that I really liked, a golem-based necromancer. They doubled the golem damage. They made certain minion aspects work for golems, and they were really powerful ones too. So it was without question that the golem is going to be like at least 5 times stronger, and it was. But there were a few other bugs, and the minion AI honestly felt a little bit worse this league. Nevertheless, I got into the game, I got into the season, and the first thing I did is I jumped into the new zones, the new vampire zones, and while I don't think they were quite like the best experience to level up at the start. It was like 80% of just the experience you'd get farming the best dungeon, which is what some of the hardcore level racers were doing. So it was very comparable experience. As you guys may know from playing Diablo this season, the loot dropping from the chests and the monsters and the combination of doing so while also completing the Whispers quests, it was actually the best volume of loot in the game. So 10 out of 10.
The thing is though, the fucking mechanic itself, doing the Whispers and going to the zone, was fucking boring and mind-numbing, and like it would literally put me to sleep. I'd be like, oh, I did my 3 Whispers. Oh, I guess I got, look at the timer, 35 minutes till the zone ends. I guess I'm just gonna run around in circles and kill the monsters for 35 minutes, and then, you know, oh shit, it's 5 minutes away. Well, let's do some more. Okay, oh, it changed to a new zone. And then you could see the cycle begin anew. And I guess to me was it exposed the hamster wheel so obviously. It wasn't even trying to hide it. It wasn't like go in there, do a little bit, then get out. It was like go in there and you just toil away. And then, you know what? Guess what? After 60 minutes, you just start again and start again. Start again. And now that's the beauty of a good, you know, action RPG is they don't expose that hamster wheel so obviously. They give you've got this large variety of things you're doing. And anyway, this league mechanic to me was literally the most depressing, boring mechanic I've ever done in D4, to the point where I would literally do my Whispers and then I'd be like, I would look at the map and I would see the timer, and then I would be like, I'd let out an audible sigh, like a, and it wasn't like it wasn't a performative sigh. It was a lizard brain sigh that I'm not in control of, subconscious, like depression. And then I would think, what the fuck am I doing? What am I doing? And what I would do is I'd just stop playing the game and I'd just end my stream, because it was so fucking boring. It was that fucking boring. It was that bad of a mechanic. So it doesn't matter how rewarding it is, how much XP or how much loot you're getting, when the mechanic itself is so bland, so basic, so repetitive that it makes me want to log out of the computer game, right? It's irrelevant. And what the guys were doing by refarming the same a bit of tunnel over and over again, even fucking worse, bro. Even worse. Literally.
Loot, 8 out of 10 experience gain, and by playing through these, you would unlock the vampire powers. And the vampire powers are actually hugely character defining. They actually seemed to work as stated. They were pretty clear. They added very unique ways to play characters by changing your dodge, by adding things like vulnerable that some builds really couldn't access. It felt like they went through the major...
Okay, you literally, it made your dodges, you just did this a little bit of bat damage or something, right? And you fucking put a curse on them. I mean, bro. Look at like any of the classic Gnostic fucking unique powers in Path of Exile and how crazy those are, and how that can like totally change the way you build a character and totally change the way you optimize your guy. And then you look at the vampire things. Yes, there was a couple that were like, oh, I don't need to get vulnerable now. Or, oh, this build that can get vulnerable, can get vulnerable. Like, okay. My cooldown's a little bit lower now on some ability. It was nothing that really, like, it wasn't like Voltaxic Rift or a fucking Starforge or a Void Forge or anything, some item that, like, completely changed the way you itemize your character. Like, you know, the Iron Will Gloves, Repentance, or anything like that. Crown of Eyes. Any of these things that are truly... completely change your experience, which is what I was kind of expecting. And what we got was some very, very, you know, generic mid stuff. And they, you know, but it was class agnostic, so you get to give them points for that. It was just extremely, in my opinion, safe and mediocre, right? Which is why it was not compelling enough to really, like, you know, it didn't mean, oh, I can make this build that was never possible before.
Class and system problems with characters. Designing characters in Diablo 4, and just added powers to fix everything. They also did not say, like they did in Season 1, that they would be scrapping this mechanic on the next season. So if we continue to have at least some versions of these vampire powers for future characters, it actually would complement the game greatly.
Kripp, they're removing it. I guarantee they're removing it. I'll bet money they're removing it. Okay, I will bet money. Like, you're insane. They literally talk about how they don't want people having, they don't want to have power creep. And they say that the whole idea behind the seasons is to like add something in, then remove it, and then do something again. Which is why they're doing they're basically doing borrowed power from World of Warcraft. 100% these vampire powers are not in next league. Dude, I will suck a literal cock on stream if the vampire powers are in next season. To be clear, like he's so incorrect here. I mean, I could be wrong, but I will suck a pickle. I will suck a pickle on stream. Okay, in a very seductive sexual way. If they add vampire powers in the next season, that's how confident I am they won't.
And I hope they do, well, exactly that.
They're not going to.
So I would actually rate this mechanic a 9.5 out of 10.
Bro, what the fuck? Oh my god, dude. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god. Oh my god, bro. Do you know? Oh my god. Do you know that D3 you got infinite Paragon levels, bro? Like that Kripp was the guy who fucking convinced the devs to put Paragon levels into the game. And then they fucking made I mean, to be fair, the first implementation of Paragon levels wasn't terrible. It was the second iteration that was complete dog shit. Holy fuck. I don't even understand what the fuck he's saying. A 9.5 out of 10 league mechanic. I actually cannot, bro. That league mechanic is so fucking aggressively mid. No, it's not even that. The actual gameplay of the mechanic is like a 2 out of 10. It makes me want to fucking log out of... No, it's like it literally makes me want to log out of the game. Unironically, if it just not had that, like, I don't know what to tell you. It was that bad.
The 0.5 is lost from the really horrible experience of actually leveling up the powers. It's such a bad system that it is mind-blowing that it went through. But once you go through that painful process, you don't have to touch it again, and you can enjoy the rest of what the league mechanic has. It's a league mechanic that you engage with immediately when you log in. It's a league mechanic that is worth doing. It's a league mechanic that changes the fundamental design of your characters. It's a league mechanic that is constantly engaging and bringing you back because you can stack it with the other mechanics that push farming and experience gain, like Trio Whispers, like actually doing some quests while you're doing the vampire zones. And it added a little bit of difficulty because if you're in the vampire zone for a while, you get the blood seekers after you that have pretty good loot drops, but they're actually pretty hard. And sometimes when you're in Nightmare Dungeon...
What fucking game is he playing? What the fuck game is he playing, bro? I have no idea what the hell... How is he saying this? This is blowing my mind.
These guys actually appear out of nowhere, and sometimes it's a boss. You get like a random boss beating on you in a dungeon. And this mechanic is really cool, and these guys, especially in the Nightmare Sigils, are some of the hardest monsters in any Nightmare Dungeons. They have like 10 times... Okay,
the one, I'll admit, yes, I got ganked by a fucking, like a vampire boss in a GR 100 or whatever, like a level 105 monster place. And the guy came out. I just couldn't work out what's happening. I was like, is this bugged? This guy literally has fucking 15 times as much life as the map boss. Is this a glitch? Like, I couldn't understand what I'm dealing with here. This guy is just like, he's got more speed than the fucking butcher times 3. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Is this a bug? What am I dealing with here? But to me, it just seemed like a bug. And the boss itself was not intimidating. It was just a massive sponge of HP.
Is the health. So there is like this butcher-like experience when you're playing Nightmare Dungeons. Really a fantastic thing. It is a very difficult thing to hit on all those notes. Even Path of Exile struggles with this in some leagues where it can be difficult to have a balanced, worthwhile, and a mechanic you constantly engage with at all levels. That's like the trifecta that I feel like PoE tries to hit on every single season, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
And what they do, though, what they try and do is they try and add depth. They try and add depth, even in the simple ways. But there's like some level of nuance and strategy to what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you can strategize and min-max, which I feel like is not the case, which is like, and on top of that, the league mechanics in PoE are generally fun. Some of them aren't fun, and guess what happens? When you don't have a fun mechanic, you just don't engage with it. Now, if you're forced to engage with it, now that sucks. And then just what you do with that league, chat, you just fucking quit. You just quit. And that's kind of, guess what, dude? what I did with this league. I just kind of got my vampire powers and I quick lead mechanic. Fuck that shit. I'm out, bro. It's like so mid, so bitch.
Well, Diablo 4 just hit on it on Season 2. And coming off of Season 1 and preseason with all the disappointments and bugs and balance issues and lack of things to do after 100, this is really quite a turn of events in my opinion and brings me to a state where I'm actually pretty optimistic about future seasons in Diablo 4.
Holy shit.
And again, coming at the end of Season 1,
holy shit,
I didn't exactly feel that way. So that was pretty cool. They also mentioned that it'll take like 40% less experience to level to 100. It's hard to really know what that means because there's so many changes. The characters are different. You have the powers. You're often engaging with the vampire zone, which is pretty powerful. You're able to do other things more efficiently. The higher character power means that you can do nightmare sigils. Like on my Sork, second character, by the way, I was just leveling in nightmare dungeons like 75 just because, you know, they were just as fast as doing.
I'm starting to wonder if Kripp's got an agenda here. Okay. I'm starting to wonder if Kripp's got an agenda because it doesn't make sense. What he's saying doesn't make sense to me. Unless what he enjoys is completely different to what the average person enjoys, and he has just got a very, very, very bespoke taste in what he likes to do in computer games. He's like he's going to BlizzCon and he's going to be doing commentating and he's going to be doing talking and interviewing and stuff. I feel like he's been finessed. I mean, this is a theory, right? This is not based in reality. This is just a theory. The Blizzard devs have been talking to him and they've been finessing his ass super hard, and they've fucking infected his brain. They've infected his brain because I feel like he's not thinking straight right now. But then again, if he played the season and he sat there and he was genuinely like fucking batting out the entire time saying, this is fucking sick, I fucking love this mechanic, holy shit, Blizzard really hit the nail on the head with this one, this fucking league mechanic is 9.5 out of 10, fuck yeah, boy! I mean, if that's what he's like, then that is what he's like, and that's ultimately, there's a game out there for everyone, and, thing is, Kripp does unironically enjoy mobile games as well. So he does have a weird brain. I think he does have a genuinely weird brain, like, in terms of what he enjoys. Like, unironically.
Like Nightmare Dungeon 40. So, in reality, it took me about 55 hours to level my first Necromancer to 100.
Let me get back at that.
And it took me about 25 hours to level my first Necromancer to 100. And I would say probably 20 or so, plus minus 10% to level my second character, my Firewall Sork, to level 100. So overall, that was pretty cool. A lot of people, a lot of other streamers said that there isn't enough content there, but I really feel like the content unlocks for the hardcore players of Diablo making new characters. Now, what they've done in Diablo 4 this season, they've actually made it really enjoyable to make and play a new character. And part of that is, well, the new bosses. They have these bosses that you kind of get the pieces.
Well, I'm confused. So you make a new character, and then you start playing the game for 2 seconds, and then you do the vampire mechanic, right? And it's like, oh, wait, this is the same thing I already done. And then, does he understand what content is? Does Kripp understand what content is? And I don't know. Kripp, I'm just saying, does Kripp understand what? I mean, what do you do? Okay, so so how is doing Whispers and doing Helltide and doing the fucking green Helltide on a Sork that different from doing the same thing on a Druid? And like, how is AFK one-shotting an Uber boss on a Sork the same, any different to AFK one-shotting an Uber boss on a Druid? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing to me. There's no content. There's no like. I was like, okay, I create a character on my Sork, and guess what? I'm playing a new character that has no future because there's nothing to do in the fucking game. Well, guess what? I started on a Barb. It's got no future because there's nothing to do in the fucking game. Like, making the number go from 1 to 100 is not content.
All over the map. It's not a fleshed out system. I think they could definitely do better with it. But coming from absolutely nothing to this system with pieces from different mechanics that bring together, and you can actually have somewhat engaging content. We'll get to that in a second. And you can get very meaningful loot off of them. They have this new system where you need to face like level 100 monsters to even have a chance at the highest item levels. And then you can go to even higher level monsters than that, or bosses, which have kind of like a plus invisible level line, so you can access some of the really powerful loot. The bosses are just dropping really powerful loot pretty regularly. They're dropping forcefully some targeted uniques. And this whole system, again, it's not perfect, but it's so much better than what they had in preseason and season 1. And if you engage with the system, what happened to me and what happened to a lot of other players is you use your boss materials to fight the bosses. You fight Dur, you fight those guys, and you get a few pieces of gear that don't quite work for the character that you're playing.
But what I'm saying is, to what end, Kripp? To what end? To what end? To what are you going to do with that? So what are you going to do? To fight the same bosses that you can trivially beat without any optimized gear on a shit character? To like do GR level... increase number arbitrarily by some amount? Like, to what end? To what end? To what goal? You know, what's the point? And on top of that, itemization in that game is so bad that there is no like, oh, I got an item that doesn't work for my build but works for this other build. Really, like it's you know, the itemization is so generic that if I get an item which has cooldown reduction, damage fucking damage on it, whatever, it's just going to be business law on any guy, right? Because all the damage increases to work for all characters, because you could just, all the fucking increases, like, guess what, dude? A sword can do increased damage to slowed enemies, increased damage to enemies that are fucking injured, increased damage to, what, you get what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. There's no, the items are not designed in a way where that exists. Now, you can make some fucking straw man argument that it does, and you can find some very niche cases, like, yes, there probably are, like, a couple slots where a build does have a thing where it's uniquely needs like a different stat than a normal than most of the other builds, but that goes for like a very, very, very small percentage of items, you know.
Then you can use your imagination or go onto like a build site like Mobalytics, you know, shameless plug, to find a build that does work with those items, or at least can work with those items.
Shit.
And that was really inspiring for me to make my second character. So I made a second character, and I kind of went through that process again, and it didn't feel like a chore. I had a lot of fun with it. This whole new thing with items capping out around 925, but you need to face level 100 monsters to unlock that cap, and anything beyond that increases the rate at which you get them. It creates a situation where you have a meaningful choice how you level up your character. Let me explain. Now, if all you do is get the optimal experience to get to level 100, you're going to have a character that doesn't really have fully leveled up glyphs. You're going to have a character that might not even have all the vampire powers. You might not have very good gear. You might not have the uniques that you want. And you might have gear that's fairly low item level. So a few things that I did, but you don't have to do it this way. I figured that I can engage with the league mechanic from the very first few levels, so I did. So I leveled constantly in the vampire zones up until about level 50 or 60, and then I started doing nightmare.
Bro, how did he know fucking blow his brains out, dude? Like in a computer game, how did he do that? He went 1 to 50 in the vampire zone, dude. Or what the fuck? Do you know what that means he did? He fucking just literally went into the green zone, did like 3 whispers, and he just walked around in circles attacking monsters with no real goal in mind, just attacking monsters. Holy shit, bro.
Sigils.
Oh
but
my God.
On the refresh each hour, I would go back to the vampire zone just to be in there a while to complete the Whispers quest, because the Whispers quest...
That's the only way you can do that mechanic where it doesn't make you want to fucking execute yourself in a computer game. That's the only way to do it. Just you go and do the Whispers and get out. And that's like, okay, you got a clear goal that you're going to achieve, and it's efficient, and then you can get the fuck out. That's the only way.
Start giving you some of those boss materials, even in the mid levels, which is pretty cool. As I approached like 70s and 80s, I'm starting to do nightmare sigils because I want to level up my glyphs. But famously, some players who got like first 100 on this season start, they didn't even have all their main glyphs to 15. So right now, you can choose Do I want to actually have a character that has most of the power unlocked through the glyphs by doing nightmare sigils? Do I want a character that has its power unlocked through powerful uniques and legendary aspects by going through the loot zone, the vampire zone? Do I...
But to what end, Kripp? To what end? They can all you guys can just kill the bosses AFK. You can all just AFK kill, like, there's no content. So, like, what's...
want to target very specific slots for very specific stats? Do I need to farm Helltides more to get, like, Forgotten Souls and whatnot? And another thing is, these level breakpoints kind of change how you're doing things. So, for example, when I was level 90, even though I kind of needed to do Helltide, if I do Helltide, Helltide is my level plus 3, so I can't actually get level 925. But at level 90, I'm easily strong enough to do Nightmare Sigils over level 50, which can drop 925s. So at 90, I stopped doing Helltides completely, just because I wanted that glyph experience, and I wanted that option to unlock the highest item level gear. And then, once I was 100, I started doing Helltides again. So really meaningful decisions, real choice on how you want to level based on which part of your character that you want to maximize. I haven't really heard anyone talk about this, but they really actually landed in a pretty good spot when it comes to this. Now, let's quickly talk about some of those mechanics.
What the fuck?
So, the boss...
I don't understand what choice he's talking about, bro. I genuinely don't understand what choice. It's like, this... Choose what? Choose what? What are you choosing? You're just choosing, okay, to roll your gear, you have to do Helltide. To get your vampire powers, you have to do the vampire shit. To live your glyphs, you have to do nightmare dungeons. There's no choice. You're just picking an order in which you do things. And then the things that you do are fucking trivial, and then they're pointless because there's nothing to measure your character against.
We have some issues with the bosses. The bosses, they're generally easy, as people call it. But I think the problem is more fundamental than that. A game like Path of Exile, and honestly a game like Diablo 2, which people regard as having fantastic, like, you know, character power and item strength and all that, these, like, pretty legendary pillars of ARPG and its history, it's usually constrained on something. Okay, both Diablo 2 and Path of Exile are often constrained on your defenses. It's very hard to increase the defenses of your character meaningfully. It's very difficult to not get one-shotted, so you kind of have to always keep that in mind. And in Diablo 4, you can have an item that has ridiculous defensive properties. You can have a chest piece, and each stat on your chest piece can reduce the damage that you take by about 20, which is crazy. Diablo 4 is actually kind of limiting you on your damage, which is interesting. It is interesting. There is no piece of gear that has 4 stats that each stat gives you 20% more damage, for example. There's not. Okay, but things get a little bit weird. When you go to, like, legendary aspects, the offensive aspects are still like 30% damage, but the defensive aspects are still like 30% damage reduction. So when it comes to the...
It's called terrible itemization and terrible game design. That's what, let's be real here. That's what's happening here. Like, I'm going to be honest, items in the game are just fucking terrible. On top of that, defense is irrelevant. People will only get as much defense as they need. They'll hit a minimum threshold so they can just get through the content, and then every single other bit of attribution of the character will go to damage output. It's the same as Diablo 3. You would get the bare minimum of survivability that you're required to survive a single hit in the game, and then every other bit of itemization and gear will just go to damage, and that's just the reality. Now, some people are going to make it a little bit tanky characters, but generally speaking, that's how we're going to build it. That will just always optimize offense.
Aspects, they're even. That's really weird, in my opinion.
What did I say? You got 5 portals, bro. You got 5 portals. Okay.
But this only works with pigeonholing, like, your damage, putting kind of a ceiling on it. They're definitely trying to do that. But it only works if they have fine-tuned balance. Well, they don't. A few builds slip through the cracks. There's maybe 5, but probably in the next few days or weeks, probably 10, maybe 20.
Well, there's not very many builds in the game, man. What the fuck? There's not that many builds in the entire game.
Have some really powerful synergies and combinations. There's barbarian builds that literally kill 4-player Duriel, which is by far the highest health minion in the game, or boss in the game, in one attack. It's like a 500 million damage. Bonk, dead, right?
Yeah.
So these combinations exist, but it's not like one build. It's not like one build fell through the cracks and they got to nerf it. No, it's like 10 builds, maybe 15 builds, maybe it'll be 20 builds.
Every class has a build where it just cheeses everything. It's not even just one build. I think all builds do, as far as I'm concerned. I'm playing a character that's playing a very weak build. It's not even considered a good build, I don't think. And that shit just melts the bosses. When I say melt, it's not one tapping the boss, but even considering it's weak, it still shreds.
Other than those, most builds, damage-wise, are pretty well balanced. If none of the builds slipped through the cracks, I actually think they would have fairly meaningful boss encounters this season, but that was pretty far from the case. So
even if you test the bosses out and you don't even kill them and you just do the mechanics don't even feel that good, bro. I'm going to be honest. I don't think the bosses feel that great. Not a single one of them gave me, like, Shaper vibes or Elder vibes or fucking Exact vibes or any of these kind of vibes where I'm like, oh, that's a cool boss. They were just like, okay. All right. I genuinely think even if they're balanced properly, I think the bosses are still mid. I'm going to be honest. I still feel like they're mid.
They still have to work on that. It's just, I feel like they're really shooting themselves in the foot because I think it's a lot harder to balance around damage than it is to balance around defense. So that is a bit of a tricky one. Part of farming for the boss materials includes having to do a wide variety of things, and one of those things is Helltide. With the new zone mechanic, the vampire zones, being pretty similar to Helltide, it offers a stark comparison of, hey, wait, it actually is way more fun to do the vampire zones than it is to do Helltide. And a lot of people really hate Helltide.
Wait, what the fuck? Bro, the vampire zones, to me, were the most depressing zones I think I've ever experienced in the entire Diablo 4 game.
Now, because they have to do it if they want to farm the bosses. And yes, I agree, but I think the change is pretty subtle. My main issue with Helltide is a lot of the zones, you don't get to, like, choose the mobs. They're not very good mobs, and they often have, like, delayed drops. It's just super annoying to have to kill something, wait for it to die, the thing drops on the ground, and then you have to walk over to get it. I think the simplest, most elegant, and best way to fix Helltides is the splinters. Wherever it drops, if you killed it or if an ally killed it like a screen away, it just goes to your character. You don't have to actually walk over any of the splinters, the Helltide cinders or whatever it's called. I think that single change is going to make people actually quite enjoy Helltide. But
fuck? I'm going to be honest, I never noticed that. I never even thought that would be a thing. That I don't think that would change my playstyle for a Helltide zone whatsoever at all. I never even considered that to be I mean, hey, dude, there you go. Blizzard, you've got a new thing you can add in. One of those little seasonal blessing things. Helltide pickup radius increased by 50%, 100%, 150, 200%. You get what I'm saying? Boom.
I think for the long term, they maybe can look at a few other options. So that's a pretty big one. But honestly, other than that, the overall gameplay loop is pretty good, but it once again reinforces the fact that Diablo 4 needs a solo self-found mode. A lot of people just want to play, not exactly by themselves, just along other players by themselves. Diablo 4 does a fantastic job of this mechanic. You can experience it in the new Vampire Zones, or you can experience it in, Helltide, for example, or a few other mechanics. But when it comes to dungeon content, you have to group with other players if you want to play with them. When it comes to doing a boss like Duriel, only one player needs to put the materials in to effectively summon Duriel, but each of the 4 players are going to get their individualized loot from Duriel.
They literally shouldn't exist, in my opinion. Let's be real here. For starters, what should happen is this: the only person who can loot the fucking items is the person who put the shit in the cube. The person who spawned the boss, that's who gets the loot. That's it. Okay, like getting 4 times as much loot because you grouped up. That's so dog shit. And then it forces you, like, oh wow, you feel like a complete moron if you don't group up to use your durials, right? And then that was just dumb. It should be whoever puts the things in should get the items. That's it. Can't trade them, whatever.
Durial. Basically meaning they get 4 times as much loot if they do it in a full party. This system is fine. Some people like it. Some people just want to play with their friends. Some people don't even play with 4. They play with 3. They play with 2. Their friend group. I think that's cool. I don't think Blizzard should mess with that. But I do think that players that want to play by themselves, Blizzard should acknowledge their option to do so. And they can kind of feel more accomplished within that realm, the players that is, if they have an SSF mode, solo self-found mode. And it doesn't seem...
This is like the first take I agree with Kripp in the entire fucking video. We're 18 minutes in. This is big true, though.
Crazy to ask for one, because a few months ago, they actually implemented solo self-found mode in Diablo 3.
Yeah.
So I really don't think it's a lot to ask for. Just don't allow players to group with other people, and don't allow trade with other players.
The issue with this is Joe Shelley doesn't know what SSF is. Well, at least didn't know. He didn't know what SSF was. Maybe he does now. He was like, "What's SSF?" Because I asked him that exact question. And the people who are doing the D3 patches aren't the people doing D4. They have a different D3 team. So, you know, because D3 has it doesn't mean anything, which is sad.
Whenever there's kind of like an issue with like duplicating or whatever, they had maybe a couple, not too many. They've just disabled trading until they get it fixed. So they can just disable trading whenever they want. And I think it's cool to play along other players, like if you find them in Helltides or whatnot, or in world bosses. But if you just disable the ability to group, it's much more meaningful, and players who are a bit more hardcore, like the players who want to get more out of the game, well, they can just play by themselves because it'll take longer to kill the same amount of durials in solo self-found mode. So that's a pretty big one.
Log in.
And last thing I want to mention, it was actually brought up by Zizaran in our D4 podcast. If you guys want to check that out, it's on the
shit. Okay,
Ziztank.
Is this tank
for that below? I actually leveled up to 100 on my Sork during the podcast, so you get some gameplay with that as well if you want to see that build happening. He mentioned that Diablo 4 really needs a Vol Orb system. Where is it? There we go, that one. So for those that haven't played,
well, any crafting. It's not even just Valor, bro. Any level of crafting depth. Like, just a single, like, not even just Valor, any level of crafting depth. Like, what he's describing is, he's saying D4 needs a bit of crafting, because Valor is literally just crafting. If you didn't know that. Yeah, any level of crafting would be good.
Played Path of Exile, a Vol Orb is an item that... it can add a stat to an item that is kind of like a unique stat, and it's an extra stat, or it can mess up the item completely, or it can delete the item. Okay? Those are the rough options of a Vol Orb.
It's crafting.
The idea is when you use a Vol Orb, you can no longer ever modify the item in any way. And when it comes to Diablo 4, you wouldn't be able to blacksmith upgrade. Maybe you can't even like change the gem in the item. Maybe you can't change a stat in the item, but the idea being that Diablo 4, you actually get hit with a lot of loot that's pretty good. Like, I don't know, for example, the chest piece on my Sork, it's the best chest piece that I've found, but I have like 10 other chest pieces that are 90% as good. If I had this like YOLO currency to potentially make them quite a bit better, or destroy them, I'd have a lot more fun with my character.
What the players are saying is you can give players a little bit more in-game by giving them a little bit of depth to crafting, and then it gives you, guess what? Crafting is an entire in-game within Path of Exile. You can. Has anyone seen me in my hideout when I'm playing Path of Exile? Has anyone seen me there? And I literally will be in the hideout for, unironically, could be 3 hours. Could be 3 hours, and I'm just in there crafting. And it's like it's a whole little mini-game within the game.
Overall, I played Season 2 for about a week straight. I think it is not a perfect game, but the difference in Season 2 versus preseason and Season 1, I think is actually pretty remarkable. I was quite blown away by just how fun it was to play, how easy it was to just pick up a new character, play through it, and just have an enjoyable gaming experience. Diablo 4 always had a strength, and it was just kind of fun to play characters. They just fixed a lot of the other stuff in Season 2, and honestly, I think they did a pretty good job at it. I don't think Diablo 4 is going to be competing with Path of Exile for like people hardcore to play the game a month at a time, but I think especially if you consider making like a second character or maybe a third character, even the hardcore players can get a week, maybe 2 out of each season. And honestly, I think that's great. I don't have that.
That's pathetic. That is pathetic. That's pathetic, bro. Bro, they are a multi-million-dollar company with huge teams, all these departments that can do all this shit, and they're pumping out this content, bro. Like, dude, a week is... I mean, don't get me wrong. The game came out, and it's still in beta. The game's still in beta, right? Let's be real here. They're still developing the game. It's still... But, I mean, bro. I mean, being satisfied with a week... It's like settling for, you know, a chick that's like 3 out of 10 or something. Or like a 2 out of 10. Being like, that's great. Yeah, man, it's just a real winner. Got a 2 out of 10 here, you know.
Many complaints about the game right now. So let me know if you agree or whatever. And I hope you guys enjoyed my talk.
Disagree with the majority of this video. But I feel like that's okay. Because different gamers... like different things. That's the reality.
Because he is God.